A common thought amongst trainees as they arrive here at OTS is, what did I get myself into? It's a completely foreign environment, or it's an environment that they saw at basic military training, but now with just a different flavor on it.
The first phase of OTS, it's really breaking down any preconceived notions that people have about officer training school.
We have some prior service, but we also have non-prior service that have never had any sort of military background whatsoever. So we're getting you used to waking up early. We're getting you used to utilizing rank and customs and courtesies and different things that you're going to utilize throughout your military experience.
Wake up is at 5:30. Training will start at 07. Lights out at 22.
We are going to be getting you ingrained into what does marching look like? How do we process through the dining facility line? How do we fold our beds?
The first few days at OTS are pretty stressful for the students. Stressful in that they don't know what they're doing, where they're going to be sleeping, who they're going to be in that room with, and it's very jumbled and a very tight schedule, and that is by design. The Blue Line ceremony happens that very first week that they're here. We wake them up really early, around 4:30 in the morning. At that point, they cross the blue line and decide whether they're going to stay here and continue that program or not.
Side out, step forward.
During the first week of OTS, those lessons that you can expect in the academic environment are, what's the Air Force core values? What is followership? What does team building look like?
Take your seat, sit at ease.
We're trying to introduce them to the skills and the lessons that we're going to expect them to apply later on in the course.
You're learning a lot right now. You're going to be learning a lot for the first year. When you get into your squadron, you need to give yourself some grace and just be open to the advice that's given to you.
I found that I experienced the most impactful lessons in the classroom, where we're interacting with the instructor, we're interacting with each other, ideas are being shared. I found those lessons to be really valuable.
I would say the most important physical challenge is passing the physical fitness test. That is something that students understand they need to do very early on.
We need to learn the lessons that we need to, so that we can get on to the more dynamic aspects of leadership. Phase 2 is taking those lessons that we've had in those classrooms, and then it's your first look at how you're going to actually apply those out into the field.
As they progress through the training, they get into some of their leadership exercises in the flight room, and then we transition into more of the field leadership exercises, focusing on giving them opportunities to take those things that we talked about in the flight rooms and apply them in the real world.
The leadership reaction course is multiple obstacles that people have to build to get from point A to point B and leading a small team through that.
They want you to mess up here so that you don't mess up when you're leading airmen.
Enemy, disinfecting water.
They did a great job of doing that so that we did feel comfortable taking those risks and making those mistakes.
I want to give my time purpose. Time is the one thing I never control. It's not always about the finish line, it's about the journey in between. That's where the real leadership actually happens.
It was a challenge physically with some of the obstacles, but then it was also very thought intensive. We had to think as a team, not just individually, right? There was an individual and a collective element. So I would say the most challenging, both mentally and physically, was that leadership reaction course.
Mission complete, yeah?
Yes, sir.
That feels good, huh?
Yes, sir.
You stick to that path, and you're gonna be one of the best officers and best leaders we could ask for.
The expeditionary skills that officer trainees can expect to learn while at OTS are how to do care under combat, how to do care under fire, how to land nav, how to get from point A to point B with a compass and a map.
The way I describe it to my students is I'm giving them tools for the toolbox. We talk about it from a theoretical perspective. We have group discussions in the flight room to begin developing some of the leadership skills that are going to serve them well out in the Air Force.
It really makes you rely on your team. Not one person can do that alone. Learning to harness the strengths of all of our team members is so critical.
Working together through differences, fighting through the grit, challenging each other to be better, which has been my favorite part about OTS.
In the third phase of officer training school, we are really looking for students to start to run this program by themselves.
Day one, we started something, and every day since we've been building on that stronger and stronger and stronger. Our team is the best one out here. We're gonna prove that today with a win on the Commandant's Challenge. All right, guys, you with me? Yeah! Are you with me? Yeah!
Now let's actually put you in a situation where you can apply these things, and that's where kind of the greatest benefit from OTS comes from. That's where the light bulbs really go off.
Congratulations!
That is a job well done. Think about what you learned about each other. Think about what you learned through teamwork. Think about what you learned about yourself. Incredible effort. You all can take pride in the effort.
This challenge required everyone to contribute. It required planning, strategizing, and the entirety of the team to chip in, especially when people are struggling towards the end, and just lifting each other up.
They are now starting to use the concepts that they learned in phase 1 and phase 2, and everybody is being able to use all of the training that we've given them to apply to their leadership exercises and practice being a leader.
So I do want an initial assessment of potentially the damage. Let's send out that team.
Moving.
Phase 3 of officer training school seems to be the trickiest for students to navigate through because you're right in the middle of the program.
We teach Air Force combatives to officers. It's just to give them an understanding of things that they could actually deal with as officers if they were to deploy in an austere environment.
ROEs, do not engage with the enemy first. This is primarily a return to down aircrew mission.
You're also going to be going through Vigilant Warrior, where you're going to be putting your leadership values that you've learned to the test.
Push, push, push. Push this way, little guys. We're on a mission.
We will deploy out to an area where you will be in charge of going after commander's objectives and guidance, and you are running the show.
Push forward this way.
So you learn all of these different expeditionary skills and judge and assess different threats.
Let's roll.
All the way up to communicating and going to do recon missions in which they scope the area. And we also have other operations which include saving a downed pilot. And this is where they kind of get all their frustrations out and get to kind of enjoy life from the actual tactical perspective of executing an operation.
You see a lot of excitement from trainees at this point, whether it's excited to go out and apply those leadership tools that we've been giving them and they have this opportunity to use them. And then you see a lot of excitement knowing that officer training school wasn't the goal. They're going to get to their goal to commission.
Hey, outstanding job, 2205. Way to be leaders, warriors, and wingmen. I appreciate seeing everybody out there pushing each other. We elevate performance across the board.
The purpose of phase 4 of training here at OTS is to really begin to transition the students and to get them ready to go out and perform as officers. We've given you the tools for the toolbox. We've helped you understand how to actually apply those tools.
Emotionally, what's going through the students is that they have just completed, probably for some of them, the hardest thing that they've ever done. And they are finally commissioned officers in the United States Air Force.
The last phase of training I would describe as more mentorship. We're trying to really connect with the students.
Thank you. I truly do appreciate each and every one of you. It's been an amazing time that we've had together.
Here are things I've done well. Here are things I haven't done well. And we try to emphasize more of those haven't done well. That's where the learning can really come from.
2, 3, 4, 5.
They're making any final preparations for the parade where they're going to march and graduate and really just celebrate as a team and as a class with their family.
Happiness, joy that it's over, it's done. The excitement of having accomplished something that for many of our students is the biggest challenge that they faced in their lives. So we see a lot of different emotions across the board while the students are here in training.
Sir, we got President Capone.
Graduation period is my favorite part of the program. Not because the trainees are leaving, but because you see the trainees' faces light up when they see their families on the other side.
I think that the biggest lesson that I learned while at OTS was that I am not done growing as a leader. I'm not done uncovering blind spots. I'm not done developing as a team player.
For the last 7 weeks, they've seen themselves as officer trainees. In this transition phase, it is getting them to realize that I might have been OT Thomas before, but now I need to see myself as Lieutenant Thomas.
They graduate, we're turning them loose into the Air Force, expecting them to lead as officers. And so we do the best that we can to get the maximum effectiveness and efficiency out of every training moment that we have with them here so that when they leave, they are ready to lead.
If you've ever been around members of the Air Force during the month of March, you may notice that some individuals grow a mustache throughout the entire month. Now, why? I'm Captain Brendan Williams from the 8th Flying Training Squadron, here to talk to you about what Mustache March is and how it came to be. So it all started during the late 60s of the Vietnam War. The 8th Fighter Squadron, led by Robin Olds, then a colonel at the time, started seeing some aerial success. And he started to grow his mustache out beyond regulation that the Air Force dictated at the time. He did this partly due to protests at how the DoD leadership was handling warfare from the States to overseas, but probably mostly due to the fact that his airmen under his command at the time believed that a well-grown mustache made you bulletproof. So you combine that with the success that they were seeing that they weren't having for a long time, contributed to this warrior ethos and morale. So today, every year, units from the Air Force participate in Mustache March, where we honor Robin Olds and the legacies and traditions that he set forth. The competition, if your unit does have a competition, it starts on the first day of the month and goes to the very last day, meaning some people, they try to cheat and grow out their mustache in the month of February, but that's not allowed. One of the nice things that has come from this is the Air Force actually updated their policy of what a regulation mustache is. You previously had to cut it vertically at the corners of the mouth, which, to be frank, doesn't look great, and they update it to where you can extend to 1/4 of an inch either side, which is a much better look. So if you decide to participate, happy Mustache March and good luck.
I am an American Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Back and Forth from America's Best Air Force. And I'm Tech Sergeant Greg Cerny.
And I'm Master Sergeant Jody Reed. And today we have a great show. So in the first episode, we talked a lot about the enlistment process and how you can enter the Air Force through the enlisted side. This time around, we're going to talk about the officer side. So if you're interested in becoming a commissioned officer in the Air Force, this episode is going to be great for you. We also have a lot of great guests. We have some officer recruiters, and we actually have some officers as guests today. So we're going to get a chance to talk to them later. But first, we're going to go over some news.
The news we got today is actually pretty cool because it's related to Officer Training School or OTS. Basically, the big point and takeaway is pregnant women can now enlist, or not enlist, they can now apply for OTS way earlier in the process than they used to be able to. Before the policy was put into place, they were not allowed to put in for OTS before the 12-month postpartum period, and now they're able to do that. So it speeds up the process for OTS. If you guys have any questions specifically about this new policy, just put a Q in your comment, and any other questions you have, put a Q in your comment, and then we will make sure to get to it. So that actually brings us to our guests, and we've actually got a pretty cool lineup. We've got more guests today than we've had in quite a while. We've got Major Kinchin from the Officer Training School. He's the Director of Staff down there. We got Captain Werho. She's the Assistant Director of the 217th Training Squadron. We have Tech Sergeant Irwin and Tech Sergeant Labrie, and they're both from the Line Officer Recruiting Program. So welcome to the show, guys. Good to have you on.
Thanks.
Hey, Sergeant Irwin, before we went live, we were talking, and you said you wanted to share some great info on where people can apply. Can you touch more on that?
Yes, sir. Just a very quick, very first step. So if you're interested in applying, interested to see if you're qualified for being an officer in the Air Force, they're going to throw up a couple websites here on the screen. And it's the airforce.com, and there's a recruiter locator. So if you just Google Air Force recruiter locator, it's going to bring you up right there. It's airforce.com/recruiter locator or find a recruiter. And you're just going to go in there, plug in your zip code wherever you may be. This works even if you're overseas. Plug in your zip code on the area of interest. For this specifically, you're going to click in the area of interest and you're going to select officer recruiting. Select that you have a degree
and which branch you're interested in. We all are a little bit different. So we are active duty Air Force. We also have Air Force Reserve, and of course we have Air National Guard out there as well. It's more of a state force. So you click on which one you want to go. Sir, if you can click on Air Force active duty, see if that pops up. Nope. Okay, that's fine. And as soon as you do, there you go. You'll get that screen right there. It'll show you your local recruiting office. The officer recruiter is the second one down. So you would just click that little down arrow right there. It'll pop up. It should give you a phone number, an address, and an email to your local officer recruiter. It's okay if they're not right in your neighborhood. They're spread out, but we cover multiple states sometimes. They're not as common to see as an enlisted recruiting office, so it may not be right next to you.
Yeah,
but that's it.
That's still really cool. How long has this tool been available?
At least a few years, but it's gotten better and better. So now we're total force, so it includes everybody, Air Guard, Air Reserve.
That's really cool.
They just revamped the site, so it's different from how I saw it maybe 2 weeks ago whenever they revamped the site. So this adjustment has happened like within the last 2 weeks, so that's pretty cool.
Nice. Wish I had that when I joined.
All right, and there was something else you wanted to share with us as well, Sergeant Irwin?
So if you're on this call and you're active duty, enlisted, Air Force, or Space Force right now, you're going to have a different process. You're not going to find a recruiter. We at Air Force Recruiting Service Headquarters are going to be your recruiter. And we provide a program announcement, some program guidance right here on this website. You can go there. You can download the program announcement, download the board schedule, look through everything that's on there. There's a lot of information. Probably have some questions, and you can reach out to us directly at our office to get those questions answered. Or if you're on here, go ahead and ask them. But it is a separate process if you're currently enlisted or in the Space Force or the Air Force active duty.
Nice.
Awesome.
That is cool.
All right.
I've already seen a couple of questions popping up through here. And I do want to make sure that we recognize you guys. We will be getting to them. I see them all coming through. We'll make sure to press on to the question and answer section and we get to those. But right now we're going to kind of introduce our guests and let them basically give you guys a good idea of the experience that they're bringing to the table and put into easy to understand words what kind of questions they're going to be really good at answering. So Captain Warhol, you want to take us away?
You had to make me go first.
I mean, I can put Tech Sergeant Irwin back on the spot.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Hello, I'm Captain Ashley Warho. I have prior enlisted, so I'm 9 years prior enlisted, and I've been an officer for the past 6 years. I actually just came up on my anniversary commissioning on March the 10th.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, congrats.
A little over a week ago. Thank you.
That's cool.
So I'm a weather officer. I was prior enlisted weather as well. And I've been an instructor at officer training school for almost 2 years. So it'll be 2 years in July. And I've been an assistant director of operations since about September of last year.
Okay.
So, yep, I've had several assignments, and I'm a mom and a wife. I have 2 young kids, so I can answer anything about, I guess, being a woman in the Air Force, family, and crossing over from enlisted officer.
Can you answer this? Were you in that OTS commercial that we showed in the first 10 minutes of when we were counting down for the show?
Yes, I was. I was wearing my blues. Yes, I was in that commercial.
Awesome.
Wait, it was on TV?
The countdown.
Right. No, I'm saying did that air on TV?
Oh.
Or was that a social media one? Website. Okay, website. Sure. Okay, gotcha. So you're basically already famous.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I was getting from it.
Yes.
Noted.
I'm already famous.
Presence of royalty. Yeah. Got it.
Send me an email and I'll give you an autograph.
All right. We'll go checkerboard status up to the corner to Tech Sergeant Labrie.
Thanks for having me. So, Tech Sergeant Michael Labrie, I've been in recruiting service for about 10 years. Before that, I got out and separated, so I'm a prior service guy, and I used to be a cop. So, lucky enough that the Air Force let me come back, and now what I primarily do is advise and run boards for active duty enlisted members, both Air Force and Space Force, to commission, lead their entire process, help them with guidance and how to submit their applications and get them to OTS.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. And Tech Sergeant Irwin.
Hello again. Thanks for having me. Tech Sergeant Eric Irwin, originally from North Carolina. I've been in the Air Force on active duty for about 16 years, but I did also take a break in service. So I got out after my first 4 years as a logistics specialist. Tried a few different things. Eventually came back to working for the Air Force as a contractor, and then just decided
I bet we're going to have some questions about that. That's pretty cool that you took a break from service. There's always questions about how to like take a break and come back. So please keep going.
Absolutely. So yeah, one of the best ways to do that is to come back in commissioned as an officer. So we'll get into that. But yeah, total 16 years of active duty service time. Now I'm currently down here in San Antonio, Texas, with Sergeant Labrie. We do the line officer program management. So we are the recruiters for active duty folks that are trying to commission from an enlisted point right now. And we also assist with all the civilian recruiters out there that most of you all who are currently civilians will work with and deal with in the civilian sector. So
okay, awesome, very cool. Well, thanks for being with us. All right, last but not least. Sorry, my paper fell over. Major Kinchin. I was making sure I said your name right.
Yeah, you're good. Thanks. Major Troy Kinchin. So I hit 14 years commissioned service in May. I'm a contracting officer by trade at 64P. I've also done some time as a 14N intelligence officer. So I'm currently the director of staff. I was an instructor here for the first year. Now, as director of staff, I work for the commandant and the vice commandant, overseeing all of the training allocations and the seat allocations for OTS. Essentially working with members like Sergeant Irwin and Sergeant Labrie to allocate those members into OTS through AFRS and all the other pipelines that send from active duty, regular Air Force, the Air National Guard, and Air Force Reserves, sending trainees to OTS.
Very cool. I'm going to throw this question out to all of our guests and just kind of get things kicked off and kind of get the question and answer going from our side. What does it take? Like, can you walk me through what it takes to put in the application process? Like, what is the application process for OTS?
I'm happy to start out with that if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first step is, we're going to get you qualified. We'll make sure you are qualified to be an officer in the Air Force. Most importantly, one of the most important things is you need a bachelor's degree minimum with a minimum 2.5 GPA or higher. That's, if you have a master's or a higher GPA, that's great, but that's the bare minimum. You can also be within a year of obtaining that degree and go ahead and start the process. You also need to be a U.S. citizen, fairly healthy overall, and morally sound. If you have some criminal charges and things like that, it could potentially disqualify you. So the first step you're going to do is contact your local recruiter using that site that was up there at the beginning of the show. They're going to run through some questions with you, make sure you are qualified to join the Air Force. If there's going to be any issues, if there's any waivers needed or anything like that, they're going to let you know about that, kind of talk you through and assist you with that process. You're going to build an application. It's similar to a resume, but it's a little more in depth. You're going to let the board members that will be selecting officers later on, you're going to let them know why you want to be an officer and why you think you should be in the U.S. Air Force. From there, that's a little more in detail. There's a lot more details there, but the Air Force recruiter is going to help you out there. Sure. Once you build that application and get it all together, it's going to be submitted to a board of colonels, 3 colonels, and they're going to review everything and look for aptitude, leadership, and potential. It's a total person concept. So they're looking at all these different places on your application. There, you could have a low score somewhere. That's not going to rule you out from being an officer. They're going to look to see if you made up for it elsewhere. Overall, you want to have the best application possible. That means good leadership experience. It means a good degree with a high GPA, great AFOQT scores, good letters of recommendation from folks that know you, people that have worked with you or been to school with you. And if you don't have one of those things, or you're a little off on one of those things, just do your best to make up for it on the other side. Once that board convenes and you are a select, then that's where we're going to go and start working with Major Kitchen and OTS to get you slotted for one of those OTS seats and actually get your career started on the active side.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for taking that one.
Awesome. Real quick, one question. You said potential is something they're looking at. How do you weigh potential?
Well, they do it through the your written communication skills. So there is
Mhm.
an interview, and there's also a couple paragraphs that you're going to write in your application. The board members have to read over every single one of those. So you want, and there may be 1,000 of them. You want to be concise, but what you want to do is state where your skills could be used by the Air Force. What leadership experience do you have? Why did you earn your degree? Do you have, is that what you're looking to do in the Air Force? How is that going to benefit the Air Force? Past job performance, promotions, awards, any type of community involvement, that kind of stuff that is on your application. That's how they're going to weigh that out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, nice.
All right. Well, I have a question maybe for Captain Werrell. How long is officer training school, and what is the daily schedule like for the trainees when they come?
So officer training school is 9.5 weeks long. I will say it starts on a Tuesday, it ends on a Friday. So that's where it's like kind of that 9.5 week range. And their daily schedule, it's from about 4:30 in the morning. Most days they're woken up at that time. Sometimes it can be earlier, depending on if we have some physical challenges going on. And it goes until about 18 or 1900 in the evening. So that's roughly a 14-hour day. I can't do public math. So they start with PT in the morning, and then they usually have, depending on the weather outside, they have drill instruction in the morning, and then they also have classroom instruction throughout the week.
So would you consider, how intense would you say that is? Like, just compared to we are combining basic military training almost and college almost at the same time. So how intense is that?
It's pretty intense as far as they're very sleep deprived. I usually tell them to learn to prioritize sleep and to not make their own rules as far as like not getting sleep. A lot of them will stay up until 10 o'clock at night because they're like, well, lights out isn't until 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, you can go to sleep before 10 o'clock at night. Like, don't make those rules for yourself. So it's like kind of teaching them to be adults, because in BMT, you're told like, this is lights out, turn the lights out. This is when you're going to sleep. But in officer training school, they can go to sleep at 7 p.m. if they really want to. It's about prioritizing what they need. But yes, it can be pretty intense. By the end of week 1, they're very sleep deprived and stressed out.
Okay.
And a lot of them aren't used to doing what they're doing.
Right. Why would somebody want to do that? Why would somebody put themselves through that, though?
Yeah, I can add to that part too. I was thinking that there's a reason behind some of the madness, if you will. It's not just madness, right? We're testing you in that future capacity that you're going to be expected to serve and have the responsibilities on your shoulders to be overseeing people and be able to overcome, be resilient, have that hardiness of spirit and moral and physical courage. We're looking to build that warrior ethos in our trainees and our candidates and thus future officers. So that little bit of stress, the environment that may induce more fatigue and more exhaustion is going to test you to some greater limits and maybe help you discover a stronger, more resilient, more capable individual out of the entire experience, instead of just discovering that, yep, when I'm tired, I struggle. Instead, we want you to find that there is somebody stronger within and a more capable you as a result.
That's awesome.
Hey, sir. So what are some of the physical and mental challenges that you all see if you're trying to get all of that instilled into someone in that short period of time? What kind of challenges are you seeing when the students come through?
Ultimately, that 14-hour day that Ashley highlighted, every minute has something. So I won't do the public math on the 14 hours times minutes, but you can imagine a task for every minute. And what I mean by that is we're going to hand them a manual upon arrival. And that manual is going to tell them literally how to do every single thing that they need to do throughout the day. How to stand, how to walk, how to talk, how to greet, how to go through the lunch line. Then there's the homework assignments on top. And then there's the just day-to-day responsibilities, because they're going to get a job when they get here, very similar to when you go out to those active duty units or any units and organizations. You have a job, you have some responsibilities. So you pile all that together, and while it sounds like a lot, it is. And then you add fatigue, you add a schedule that is not typically normal, waking up at 4:30 every day and having just your go from that point forward. There's physical training mixed in. There are events each week that are involved, that are also added on top. So these events include ruck marches, around 5K, similar distance type runs with various training events or stations, if you will. I mean, we wouldn't want to give away too many of our too much of our secret sauce, but it's an environment that is constantly testing you and making sure that you have what it takes to reach that upper echelon of leadership from an authority standpoint. And then the final test is, can you handle the responsibility from a maturity and a leadership standpoint?
Sure.
I mean, of course, in the Air Force, we have leaders at every rank, and that's not just what's on your chest. We're leaders at every rank. But this environment is going to bring you to a point where when you are overseeing in an organization, overseeing people, these tests that we've put you through are the same tests that others are going through that you may be leading one day.
Sure.
And if you haven't been able to overcome them, then how can you lead those who need to overcome them themselves?
Sure. No, that's a really good way of putting that.
Well, all right. So we have how do OTC grads compare with the ROTC?
There was a whiteboard that just popped up, and we were both like, "What was it?" It was like an instant question.
How do OTS grads compare with Academy and ROTC?
That sounds like someone's about to start like a thumb war or something.
Here we go. Ashley, do you want to start off?
So I have friends that are ROTC grads, and I have friends that are Academy grads, and I have friends that are OTS grads. I'm an OTS grad. Troy, you're Academy or ROTC?
Academy, you better never forget that.
I could have probably told you.
Okay, yeah, Academy thinks they're better, but OTS are actually better.
Okay. Oh, look, water.
Yes. So going back to the question, you said how do we compare?
Yeah, it's how they compare. I will open up. And I'll say that if it's that I've drank the juice since I've been here at OTS, I'm of course a proud graduate of my alma mater. It is what raised me in my foundation to my officer career. And foundation is the key word. And every accessions pipeline is there to lay the foundation. It is not responsible necessarily for whether you are going to be the best or the worst. I think each pipeline has its own spectrum of leaders that they can produce. And it is my opinion, however, even with any of my fellow grads watching this, that I do firmly believe OTS produces the most outstanding officers in our United States Air Force.
Oh, wow.
They also produce 55% of the Department of the Air Force's officers across the active duty, guard, and reserves. And I don't just say this because the question is just teed up to look this way. I genuinely believe OTS, given the time frame it has, it may not be 4 years, but I don't think 4 years is needed. That may just be a luxury. And I genuinely believe OTS produces the most outstanding officers. And I'll add this one final piece of why. It's because of gentlemen like Sergeant Irwin and Sergeant Labrie and the entire team that make up AFRS and all of our recruiting pipelines. It is not easy to get into OTS. In fact, it's one of the most challenging, if not highly selective, sources to become an officer. And I think it's that feeds into the caliber and quality we see that come to our schoolhouse. And then what we're able to work with, it's outstanding. And it's almost an easy job to make the best even better.
Wow. So you're seeing the best of the best when they come to OTS. Oh, I just made it wrong.
Yes.
There's your next Jody.
All right, Ashley. Now you can talk about how great of a graduate you yourself were as well.
I'll add on to that and say when individuals go through OTS, like I said before, it's 9.5 weeks, and whether they're coming off the streets or they're coming in from prior enlisted experience, and it's not that in ROTC and Academy they don't want to be there. Absolutely, people that are in ROTC and Academy want to be there, but in OTS they have to go through a change in that 9.5 weeks, and they have to want to be there. And so their drive, I won't say that it's higher, but because like at any given moment, they can make a decision that can make or break them in OTS. And there's not a lot of chances to recover from mistakes, character mistakes, things like that. And so they have to want to be there. And it's like being fed through a fire hose the entire time. And anybody that gets out of there, they have some resilience about them.
Gotcha. That's really cool. It's also personal experience, and that's kind of cool to hear that. We are going to turn the mic over. Well, not our mic. We're just going to turn on the producer's mic. This is Major Lane. He has something to say.
He wanted to chime in on that debate.
Can't let the other officers on the call be like, "Hey, no, this is." Hit it, sir. It's all you.
No, can y'all hear me? Am I coming in clear?
Yes, sir.
So, Major Kitchen, thank you for that alley-oop on how OTS produce some of the best. I'm actually an OTS graduate myself, but what I will say is I graduated from OTS. I had the privilege of teaching ROTC at the University of Georgia. And then in my current role as the advertising branch chief, I got to go out and film some productions for the Academy. And so my viewpoint is that OTS, if you have your degree and kind of want to get through the officer program a little faster, OTS is your route. ROTC, if you're going to college and you want to enjoy that college life but also serve, then ROTC is the spot. But I can tell you hands down, the Academy gets so many opportunities and get to do so many cool things that it's just, when I went up there, I was personally jealous of all the good stuff that they get to do at the Academy. So if you just want a phenomenal experience to becoming an officer, I would highly recommend the Academy as well. But that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, sir.
I'm not going to disagree.
He said, I'm not going to disagree.
I do appreciate the fact that there were percentages thrown in, and there's not comparisons, but there's justifications.
Right.
So where is OTS? Let's do that.
Montgomery,
OTS
Alabama.
is in, yes.
Could like a 3, 2, 1 countdown. Get ready to do it. The one that says it wrong has to do push-ups or something.
It's at Maxwell Air Force Base.
Nice.
Okay. And for we lost him for a second. And for
he's back though.
Labrie or Irwin, what are y'all seeing as some of the biggest frustrations that the applicants are having when they're trying to get their package or their application put in?
I'll start with one is just time. Our recruiters out there are busy. They're dealing with a lot of people. They're dealing with a lot of different things. The process is lengthy. And so we do have people that kind of get just swayed a little bit away from joining sometimes just because of the amount of time it takes. So, I recommend if you're thinking about it, start right now, even if you're 2 years out from graduation or 2 days. Start looking into how this works. Get in contact with the recruiter, ask some questions, just how, get a good feel for the process, see if there's going to be any headaches. One thing is medical records. If you've had a broken leg when you were 9 years old, you're going to need to find those medical records and get them. So you can go ahead and get on top of that stuff. Sometimes it takes months.
Yep.
So that's one of the big issues is just a time delay. It is a process.
And you said 2 years out from graduation to start. I guess, what's your ideal time for someone to, if they're thinking about starting this process, they're still in college, what's the ideal time to come reach one of you?
Ideally, I would say definitely by the beginning of your senior year, so 12 months from graduation. Go ahead and get the ball rolling. It could be a fast process. You could be easy breezy, breezing right through the doors to OTS, or it could be, a lengthy process where we need a lot of forms. We need, this and that. So go ahead and start it. And if the recruiter determines that you aren't going to have such a length of time, they may say, okay, touch base with me again in 4 months or 5 months or whatever. But at least you will know, and you will have a heads up if there's going to be any issues.
Gotcha.
If you
That's
don't
awesome.
Mind, I'd like to pick on that for a sec.
All right.
Not much a headache, but a good piece of advice is if you're interested in this and you're about to get out to a recruiter to find with them, take the time to really learn about the AFOQT test and study for it. We find that a lot of folks sometimes get rushed into taking that test, and for that type of test, it sometimes can be jarring to sit through that type of test and how difficult it actually is. So I would just say, if you are interested in this, research the AFOQT test, study it. That way you can do a little better on your first time out.
Gotcha. They're very cool. All right, now's the part of the show where we get to the questions and answers with the audience. And if you've just joined us, we will basically cycle through the comments that are coming to us. And if you have a question, put a Q and a semicolon in front of it, and we'll know that that's a question. It helps us pick them out of the pack a little faster. So, first question. I'm a proud United States Air Force veteran with a flag.
I think he wants to
it
read
wasn't a question.
What's the ideal time?
Let's see. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I think I was reading a comment.
I saw one. So I asked, what's the ideal time for somebody who's in school? What about if they already have their degree? What's the ideal time for them to reach out to you and start the process?
Yesterday. Yesterday, get the ball rolling. Our boards, the actual boards that you will meet are scattered throughout the year, depending on whether they want rated or non-rated. The next non-rated board's coming up in June, and we're dealing with a rated board right now. So just immediately go ahead and contact them, get the ball rolling, get the process started. Don't wait.
Gotcha. All right.
All right. Next question. Am I reading Tiffany or am I reading Brandy?
No, I'll pull them up.
Okay. All right. We have chaplain candidate applicant here. How is the OTS experience for chaplains versus other airmen?
That's good. I
can answer this a little bit. I don't know if Major Kinchin, do you want to answer it, Sam? Go ahead, Major Kinchin.
No, you take it away, Ashley.
So chaplains right now, their program, I think most of them is the full 9.5 weeks. And they participate in everything except what they're restricted from doing. So it's usually combatives and carrying a weapon. But they get the full experience because they need to know how to be with other people within the military and other jobs, and with what they're doing as a chaplain. So a lot of even the medical corps and the JAGs, and then even the chaplains, some of them will be there for 5 weeks, but they don't get the full experience with everybody if they're not there for the entire 9.5 weeks. So actually a few weeks ago, the commander, Major Kinchin, what was his name? He was there to actually look at how they were going to change the course for chaplains.
Yeah, it was the headquarters lead chaplain for the entire Air Force Chaplain Corps.
Okay.
Major General Kitchens is actually his last name. He visited, and they were looking into what you're referencing.
All right. I like that I now have an out in case I say your name wrong.
But we just from the behind the scenes, we just our next episode, or April 4th, we're gonna have religious affairs, and we're gonna have some chaplains in for the next episode. So for the person who asked the question, you can definitely tune back in on April 4th, and you can probably get a lot more information on that as well.
Yep. Like last episode, we had over 1,200 comments and a ton of questions. And it was actually all about the medical qualifications process. So that's what we did last time, was going through whether or not you're qualified, what it takes to become qualified, and any questions that can. Tons and tons of questions about some really detailed things that a lot of people don't really consider. So definitely bring those questions in a couple weeks, and we'll see what we can do for you then.
Awesome,
sir.
I'll add real quick for the chaplains. OTS also has a 2-team chaplain staff that's here at OTS. And they actually oversee specifically the chaplains while they're in training. So much that they at least facilitate some additional training where, say, the rest of the students are going to shoot weapons and get qualified. and the chaplains are not attending, they'll have something for the chaplains to facilitate their training. They're not just going to sit idle, and they're going to keep moving their training along as well.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
All right, let's get to the next question. Does not having an ROTC background affect job selection / the application process?
I'll start out with this one. No, not at all. ROTC background doesn't really have anything to do with it. If you're going through ROTC, then your job selection is going to be done within ROTC or as you get close to graduating ROTC. For us on our end, if you've done a little bit of ROTC and now you've gotten out and you want to apply through OTS, the ROTC isn't a factor at all. Now, the degree that you earned while you were in college, yes, maybe. Some of the other things, but not ROTC specifically.
So in junior ROTC as well, would that affect at all?
No, it has no effect on your job selection. So what we have a job list that we ask you to pick from. There's a lot of them. Pretty much anything you can do in the civilian sector, you can usually find that job in the Air Force. So you go and you select your job list, and then we go through and based on total order of merit, it will select people based on where their selection is within the process, and then it's going to look at their number one job. And if it's available, boom, they book it. If not, go to their number 2, number 3, and so on. So we're only booking you jobs. You're already going to know what job you're getting. You've already given us your list of jobs that you're willing to do. And what you did in junior ROTC or ROTC has no effect on job selection for OTS.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Thank you. All right, next question is, can you join Enlisted, then become an officer? And are there any age restrictions? Ooh, Captain Worrell.
This one sounds pretty specific.
Well, you were prior enlisted, right? And you said you did 9 years of enlistment, and then you transitioned to the officer side and did 6 years. So, I guess
the answer is yes.
Could you
Yes,
walk through that process then of how, as much as you remember, of how it worked?
Yes. So I actually had a pretty unique transition as well. So even though I was prior enlisted, I separated from active duty, and I was separated for 3 entire years, like not affiliated with the reserves or anything. And so when I commissioned, I went through the recruiter as a civilian to commission.
Okay.
So that I was told that was also really, really rare to go back active duty. So it was like active duty, reserve, separated, then back active duty as an officer. So that was my process. And I went to the recruiter in January of 2016, and then I went to OTS in January of 2017. That was also really quick. Most people, I think it takes to more than 2 years to go. So
I watched Labree's face as you said, Labree's face as you said that, and he was like, wow. Like, that was really quick.
I think that it had something, yes. I think it had something to do with my job, so weather. And I think that it had something to do with the year 2016, 2017, and how many officers they were recruiting at that time.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, as I guess for Sergeant Irwin or Sergeant Labree, if somebody's currently serving and they're transitioning, do they have to go through you as a OTS or as a line officer recruiter, or do they go through another process?
Yes. So if they're currently enlisted, they're going to go to that website, the second website we showed, and they're going to follow the program guidance. Basically, they're going to do exactly the same thing as a civilian applicant would do, but they have less guidance. They're actually going to read it and do it on their own. Absolutely a good way to get commissioned if you're coming in enlisted or you are already enlisted. We do select a lot. I want to say like 60 or 7% of one of the last boards was active duty enlisted members. So the numbers can be pretty high. It's a very good way to get a commission. You already have some leadership experience and some job experience from your enlisted time. That's going to look really good to the board members. So it could definitely a good route to go.
One more question. I'm sorry, I'll be hogging all the space. I know you get applicants a lot who have their degrees, and sometimes they may not fit right now for OTS. So when do you refer people to try the enlisted route if they have a degree?
Should be every person. So, if someone comes to us as a recruiter and they say, hey, I'm not really qualified right now, or I don't think I'm qualified, I don't really want to go officer, I want to get some experience, then we're going to refer them to an enlisted recruiter. For anybody out there that's watching, if that happened and you didn't get an enlisted recruiter, I would go right now to that Air Force recruiter locator, type in your zip code, and find the nearest one. But we generally refer everyone that can't make it on the officer boards to an enlisted recruiter to see if they would fit in there.
Okay, awesome.
Sounds good.
Next question.
How can I join the U.S. Air Force recruiting?
Oh,
want to come hang out with us? Okay.
So you would first have to, basically, depending on which component you're in, if you're in active duty, what they do is they call it a developmental special duty. Basically, you would have to talk with your leadership and let them identify to them that you want to be a recruiter. And then they're going to have you list some special duty positions that you'll be interested in, things like military training instructor, recruiting, and other special duties. And then if you get selected for recruiting, you would come to the recruiting schoolhouse. That's where I actually teach, so I could potentially be your instructor. And then you get taught how to be a recruiter, and then they will send you to a location where you will recruit. One thing to remember, you have to, right now, I think you have to be a staff sergeant. I know last year we were letting some senior airmen in, but I haven't seen any this year, so I don't know if they're still doing that. But most of the time it's a staff sergeant position, so you got to at least have that for you in order for you to apply. If you're with the Guard, if you're looking for the reserve to be a recruiter, you're going to have to look for their positions that they're hiring for. You have to go to the website and see what positions are currently being hired for, and if recruiters want, you can apply for that position.
Nailed it. All right, next question.
What is the wait time for a slot to go to OTS?
So like the captain was saying, a year is very fast, especially from start to end, because there's just a lot of the process. We have to do a background investigation. You have to meet a board. We have to get a class seat and be able to schedule you. And those aren't, infinite numbers. They are limited. So sometimes it does depend on your job. Like if you're weather and we need, to hire a specific 5 weather that year or something, we may try to push you to the front of the line, so to speak. But generally speaking, 12 to 24 months from start to finish is realistically probably what you're looking at. So be patient.
12 to 24. And so I saw Sergeant LeBree's face light up when the captain said that she had went really quickly. And so weather seems to be an uncommon position for you all. And if so, what positions can people go right into with their degrees? Because I know for the most part, if you have a degree, just a basic degree, you kind of line up a job process similar to the enlisted side. You create a job list, and then you all try to find them a job. But for her, having that weather background, it seems like she got to go straight into weather. So what kind of other career fields are there where you can do that?
So, she's right. There's definitely going to be some expedited timelines for those folks who have very specific or degrees like electrical engineering, and you want to be an electrical engineer, aeronautical engineering. Those are right now big ticket items for the Air Force. And so we hold things called CAD boards, which are for those types of degrees. And we select those folks pretty fast. And because they're not rated applicants, they don't usually need additional medical screening. And so the timeline for them is drastically less. Now, what she said was amazing to me, even with knowing what I know. But yeah, so electrical engineering, aeronautical engineering, weather is another one if we end up having a need on our guidance letter that we need it, which we did last year. Certain research degrees and things like that for operations research. So there's a few AFSCs, Air Force Specialty Codes, that require very specific degrees, and sometimes that will expedite the process. But non-rated, we've improved our process really well for them in general, and they can be gone anywhere from 8 months to 14 months. That timeline that he stated is very common for rated, just because of the additional medical screening that's required for them.
Thank you.
Gotcha. And how important is it for that waiting period for the preparation? Like what kind of stuff, leads into, you're going to be more on the 24-month end. Like what can people do to make sure that they're on the closer to the 12-month end? We can't all be superstars, but 12 months is fast.
Really quick, I'll say to that, one of the downsides to me going to OTS super fast was that my top secret clearance wasn't done until a year after I commissioned. So I wasn't able to do certain things in my job until that top secret clearance was finalized. So it wasn't all great that I went that fast.
Got it.
There are other processes that take time, and especially a top secret can take more time than 12 months sometimes. Yep. So. All right, next question. What about commissioning into the Space Force through Air Force line officer recruiters? I'm looking at you guys now because I don't know.
All right, so there are some designated recruiters that are Air Force members that have been spun up on the Space Force's history and things like that so that they can speak well about the Space Force and be informed. But generally speaking, you will still reach out using that website for an Air Force recruiter that's closest to you, which could be in your state, it could be adjacent, but you'll still reach out to them. You'll still do the same process for civilians, but when it comes time to answering very specific questions for the Air Force, the Space Force, they may pitch you over to one of those experts. But now, when you go to an Air Force recruiter, you get to decide which way you want to go, and in some cases, people will apply to both, and they're open to either opportunity. So the processes are still the same. One key difference on the active duty side is that there is a small Space Force contingent up at AFRS that works the active duty separately from myself and Sergeant Irwin to process their board. So there's going to be a separate program announcement for you to read for instructions, a separate board schedule. So active duty, Guardians, and Air Force will have a slight difference as far as who they go to get questions and who they apply through for active duty. But sister service guard, reserve, and civilians and prior service folks will still go through Air Force recruiters out in the field.
Gotcha.
Officer session.
Very cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question says, which MOS or AFSC is taking 40-year-olds?
It's right there at the line.
That'd be definitely not rated. RPA, the age cutoff is 40, and regular non-rated, the age cutoff is 40. So if you're getting close to that, those are the positions you want to look at. Not so much rated, which is flying. So that's pilot, helicopter pilot, CISO, ABM. Those you're going to be past the age cutoff, which is 33. But the rest of them you can still be considered for.
Up to 40.
So also, just in case that question came from somebody who just joined us, that I believe was a good officer's answer. But how about for the enlisted side?
It's the same. 40 is the max age. The only way I know that you're joining over 40 is for some of those health profession careers. They look into, because some of their doctors that they're looking for are like, they're 1 in a million, and they're 45, 50 years old, so they'll do a waiver.
You make an exception.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we've had a 55-year-old as a trainee, and also include Chaplain. The Chaplain Corps, they will also recruit past the 40 age waiver.
So how common is it that you see the people older than 40 come in through OTS?
It's pretty common every single class.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I just want to comment on, it's not entirely accurate. We can take prior service folks who have active duty time but are over 40. You can minus your active duty time for both non-rated positions and RPA. So if you're 44 and you did a 6-year stint, you're still under the time. So as long as you can apply to a board, be selected, and go to OTS before your adjusted year of 40, you're still good to go to apply.
So example, 44, but you did 6 years of service. You subtract the 6 years from 44. That makes you 38 to the Air Force. So you're under that 40-year-old threshold.
Correct, sir.
Got it. Awesome.
All right. You want to take the next one?
Yeah. How do I join?
Go find a recruiter.
You got to start with finding a recruiter. And then the recruiter will outline.
That tags back to Find a Recruiter, which is the site that we already took a look at, which is just, it's airforce.com?
Yep, airforce.com and Aim High. Both of those are great ways you can find a recruiter, and that'll be your starting point. And then the recruiter will outline everything you need to do to start this process. That'll be the best route for you to start, or if you're asking how to join.
And if you got questions, talk to a recruiter. There's so many times that's just go find a local recruiter and ask them as many questions as you've got until you know your path, and then follow their guidance to get there.
Right. All right.
Can you join the ROTC in the Air National Guard? And when you're done with the program, can you continue to stay in the National Guard as an officer? I would say, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah, you can. They have so many slots.
Okay, they've got a certain number of slots.
Yeah.
I got you.
Well, so
okay.
OTS trains all of our regular Air Force active duty through AFRS and other pipelines, as well as Air National Guard, as well as Air Force Reserves. So the Guard has their own pipeline, and that application process would be through that local Guard unit that you're applying to work for, and the rank, of course, you want to go in as.
Sure.
Yeah, they were asking about ROTC.
Okay.
In ROTC, yeah, at least when I was teaching that, they would get so many slots.
We're going to unmute you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think they were kind of asking about ROTC. Can you join the ROTC? So the question is yes, but it just depends on how many officers the Guard need. There's certain programs. So if they need like 12 officers or whatever this fiscal year, then they'll open up that many slots for ROTC if they're not getting them through other commissioning sources. But it's a case-by-case, year-by-year thing on what they need for ROTC.
Thank you, sir.
Next
All
one.
right, next question. And requirements for nurses. We don't have any health profession recruiters on here, but are y'all familiar with the requirements for the nurses?
I'm somewhat familiar. It's just it depends on specifically what, but there is the Health Professions Scholarship Program, HPSP, through Air Force Institute of Technology, and I know their website, AFOQT's website, has most of that information that would outline those requirements, the degree, stipulations, commitment, timeframes. And depending on where you are in that program, it can either pay for the remainder of medical school, or if that's not necessary, then it can facilitate that transition into the Air Force coming through OTS as an officer.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So I can piggyback on that a little bit. Sergeant Irwin and myself used to be health professions recruiters. Now it's OA recruiting, so it's all combined. So basically, you would go to the same office that we're talking about for these line officer jobs, only you would say, hey, look, I'm interested in nursing. And depending on what level you're at in your education system, like the major was saying, you could do a transition program, you can do a scholarship program, you can come on as a fully qualified nurse. They have critical care nurses. We have just about everything. The best advice I can give for that person is reach out to an officer of sessions recruiter via that link that Sergeant Irwin was talking about earlier, and say you want to talk to a nurse corps recruiter, and they'll find you somebody competent to answer every question and help you find a path that works.
Thank you for that.
Gotcha. What are the requirements and qualifications for special warfare? So we understand that some of you guys watching and joining us won't have specific questions to line officer or officer stuff. We'll still get to some of those, but we may have to provide like officer and enlisted answers to that one, just because that could be a really broad, answer if we just did it overall.
Yeah. So for the enlisted side, of course, they have the special warfare careers, but for officer side, I guess, how does that work? Are you all responsible for recruiting special warfare candidates in the officer side, or is that something with the 330th?
Yes, sir. It's going to be the 330th. They're going to reach out, and they have their own recruiters, their own processes, a little more intense, as you might imagine, than ours, a little more physical. There's some different stages that they go through, and I can't speak to them all. I have not been a 330th recruiter, but they do have recruiters out there in the field. Again, we keep referencing it, but if you go to that recruiter locator and you click on special warfare interests, you will get that specific information to that recruiter. And then you can talk to them about, which special warfare job are you interested in? Or are you open to all of them? And they can give you the specific requirements for each position because they may be just a little bit different. And of course, they're going to give you, generally qualify you to make sure you're qualified for Air Force. And that's going to be the same on officer or enlisted.
All right.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir. Any difference for Space Force versus Air Force and OTS? Ooh.
So I'll answer this a little bit. So right now, the Space Force has a Space Force instructor. So their curriculum is mostly the same. They do have some breakout sessions where they have mentorship with Space Force officers. They also have a Space Force offsite that they go to down in Eglin towards the end of the program. And like I said before, their instructor is Space Force. And right now it's aligned that their entire flight is Space Force. So they're not integrated. They're integrated with the Air Force into the entire program, but they are in their own Space Force flight.
That's cool.
That is wild. I did not know that they were getting some breakout sessions. I thought it would be the same training all the way through.
And I'm sure it'll phase.
Right.
It'll eventually.
It is the same training, but then they just have additional on top of it Space Force specific stuff.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Cool. All right, next. Is there a specific date to take the AFOQT this year? If so, when will it take place?
The AFOQT is given many, many times throughout the year. They give it at MEPS. Some of the local colleges, ROTC units give AFOQT. There's a bunch of different ways. You could probably Google AFOQT and get some of the different sites. But the easiest way, again, is to reach out to that local recruiter. They're going to have those contacts. They're probably going to know if you can test at a local college, maybe faster, or they'll just send you to MEPS and get your AFOQT done there. I will reiterate what Sergeant Labrie said earlier. Don't just take it on a whim. Make sure you study so you can do your best and you do get scheduled to take it.
What's the easiest way to reach out to those organizations and find out if they offer it and when they offer it? Do you know?
If you're looking for, I don't know, here we're University of Texas, right? You can go to University of Texas website, look for their ROTC detachments and find an email or a phone number. You may have to call like the general college line and get connected to the ROTC department, and they'll be able to let you know if they give the test there.
Right. Cool. What about if they're working with you? I know with the ASVAB, I can schedule you to take the ASVAB any day of the week. Are there days when they can take the AFOQT with you?
So we don't give the test ourselves. There are websites out there where you can go and schedule it on your own, and that's what we would refer them to our program announcement. If they're currently enlisted, active duty Air Force or Space Force, we would refer them to that program announcement, and they can get the link from there and schedule it themselves.
Oh wow, the recruiter is not scheduling the AFOQT for them.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Continuing with the AFOQT, can it be retaken, and how many times?
Yes, it can be. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah. So the AFOQT can be taken twice and a third time with a waiver to take it a third time if you show significant improvement in a college course. The other key thing is that you cannot take it within 4 months of the previous test. So it's more about a timeline. But the total number of times without a waiver is 2 times.
And how often are those waivers getting approved?
We actually don't track the waivers because it's through them. It's through the organization that gives the test.
That's right.
And so typically, as long as you show that you have, like you've taken a college course in mathematics or you've taken some kind of course to improve whatever your score was low in before, they're usually given and granted. My understanding is they're granted quite frequently.
Okay. Are there any SAT scores or ACT scores that they would have to be indicative of them doing well on the AFOQT? based off
No,
your?
there's no real correlation
There's
between
no correlation.
those. They're very similar types of tests, but there's no correlation between, or at least no data that we've collected that would state, hey, you did this well on your SATs, you should do this well on the AFOQT, especially since the SATs are to predict how you'll do in college, and the AFOQT is to predict how well you've done in college and how well you'll be as an officer. So it's a college level test versus a college prep test, basically. So they're a little different.
Gotcha. All right, well, we'll bounce to that last question that was up there. Does the Air Force provide anything, any resources that are free to help people prepare for the AFOQT?
I'm not aware of any specific trainings or anything like that we do for the AFOQT. As a recruiter, I would usually recommend the guides that you can get. There's guides online, there's free ones, there's ones that you can pay for. The library has the guides. Again, if there is an ROTC unit, either junior ROTC or regular ROTC at the college, they may have some specific guides for AFOQT. I don't know of anything specifically that the Air Force has available just for study.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Thank you.
Heard from a local recruiter that the Air Force Academy and ROTC get priority for jobs. Is that accurate?
No.
Yeah, no.
He said and no. It's like, okay, next question. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm not sure if they're referring to after they graduate and they're commissioned, but there's no priority necessarily. Right. There's a breakout of like this many officers come from the academy, this many officers come from the ROTC, and this many come from OTS, and each career field has its own breakout within that. Mm-hmm. And it's not really a priority based on where you were commissioned. That's more of a big Air Force making decisions on where they want to funnel certain career fields and fill gaps.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for the clarification. All right, let's get the next one. Yeah. How many weeks is basic training?
Basic training is 7.5.
For both?
For enlisted.
Oh, that's right. It's
basic training 7.5. But for OTS, Captain World, you said it's 9.5 weeks.
9.5 weeks. Yes.
Okay.
So it depends on whether you want to go officer or enlisted. It's less than 10 weeks.
Less than 10 weeks overall.
You're good, yeah. No matter what.
All right. And what are the upcoming board and class dates for 2023-2024 year?
Somebody quick get your calendar.
You know these off the top of your head. I know we have a board right now that we're building up for, and we have a non-rated board in June. The next OTS class is in August, and then we're going to have another one for anyone that's applying to these boards right now. The OTS will start October of 2023, so they will be, FY24 assets. Labrie, do you know him?
Yeah, the dates offhand are a little bit hard because we just did the calendar for next year, but he's right. Right now, we have a board that just did the board cutoff, and that's meeting pretty soon, so there's no way he'll make that one. But the non-rated board is going to have that board's going to be happening in May with a release in June, and anybody from the boards in fiscal year 23 is going to be considered an FY24 asset. And they, even though selected in 23, will actually leave starting October of fiscal year 23 and go through to commission prior to 30 September of next year. So the exact dates, we kind of have an outline, but we don't have perfect dates yet. We typically release those on our website for the active duty folks the minute they're approved, and right now they're going through the approval process for next year.
Okay.
So we don't have it.
So you said the next one is in May. Right now, if an applicant came to you today, is there any way possible you can get a package in quick enough for the May board?
Well, it's a May application cutoff, and the actual board itself, when they meet to grade, will actually be in June.
Okay.
And so it would be possible, but you would also have to not have any medical issues going on so that way you could get through MEPS. Civilians having to clear through MEPS is actually part of what takes a little bit longer now that we have the Genesis system.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a clean bill of health and you're motivated to do things on an expedient basis, you could feasibly get an application done in time. But the question is, will you feel confident enough to take that AFOQT? Because it's a pretty big factor on whether or not you are competitive.
Right.
And so rushing that, I would still never advise it. Now, if you've just been great at tests your whole life, I mean, I'm not one of those people. Some people are. Give it a go.
Right.
Always try.
All right.
Awesome.
Let's keep it moving. I'm Muslim. How accommodating is school with prayers? I'm going to assume we're on OTS. I'll let you guys take it away.
Yes, we do honor religious accommodations for students. There is a process to request what those needs are for the religious accommodations, and those go through our chaplains for review. And then as best able, where there's always, it depends, we are going to accommodate those religious needs. There's, of course, that military extent that we cannot accommodate. And it may come down to some of the food restrictions in our DFAC, our chow hall. And where we can't accommodate, we still find other ways to allow the student to bring food in that might be religion specific or time frame specific for certain accommodations.
And I lost my question.
That's all right. You come back up with it. And it's important to note also that chaplains are not religious specific. They are basically, it's a title given to someone who handles all of the different, like they don't handle all the different religions, but the chaplains represent. So you'll have chaplains that represent Christianity, you'll have chaplains that represent, Buddhism, and you'll have chaplains that represent, Judaism. And like there's a specialty out there, and there's someone that you can absolutely talk to with specific questions and get those addressed.
Yeah. I love how good you are. Every time I run into a jam, you save me. I do remember the question. So do they have to figure out this accommodation prior to coming to OTS, or does that happen when you get to OTS?
It'll be prior. They just have to coordinate that through the recruiter, who will at least funnel that information likely up through Sergeant Irwin and Sergeant Labrie and members like that, where there just has to be some prior coordination that says these are going to be some special needs and religious accommodations for the time frame that I'll be attending. So we understand that, OTS, as it's ongoing throughout the year, there are certain holidays that we clearly overlap. And those holidays, where best possible and what we can accommodate, whether it's a Sabbath situation or a food restrictions situation, we will try to accommodate. There is an extent of training we cannot allow a certain member to miss. That is the minimum requirement to get through the syllabus and the curriculum. Now, where exceptions can be made, it's that they're made up in other ways. So it's not really that anyone is ever excused from the full extent of training. It's that there are ways that we can accommodate around or reschedule that individual for a better OTS class that doesn't conflict with that time frame as much.
So definitely willing to work with someone where it's possible. That's awesome.
Yes. Got it.
That's really good to hear.
Awesome.
All right, let's see if we get the next one. My recruiter is putting me down the MSc officer path. Is this different than the traditional officer path? What's an MSc officer path?
Like medical, right?
Medical Service Corps.
Okay. What's the difference?
Medical Service Corps officers, they're working in hospitals. They're more of a hospital administrator type role.
Gotcha.
It's actually a more typical officer path than traditional medical paths, in that they're less involved in the care of patients as they are in the administration and organization of hospitals and all of the staff and personnel and professionals that work within those organizations. Same path through OTS, and in some cases, depending on their qualifications, they may qualify for the abbreviated OTS course, which is just shy of 5 weeks long.
Oh, gotcha. So it sounds like his recruiter's probably pretty informed on what he needs and is helping shape that direction for him.
Okay.
I would say to piggyback on that, the person could, if not selected at that board based on whatever happens and the timing works out, they could pivot to one of our boards. They should be equally qualified for one of our boards, both rated, and the only difference is they'd have to make sure they take the AFOQT if they didn't before. But either way is a pretty great path.
Good deal.
Thank you. And do any of the component services have commission and job position for veterinarian college student with a 3.86 of a 4.0 GPA?
To my knowledge, we do not have a veteran path within the Air Force. Great GPA, great degree, and you will probably find that. But I don't believe we offer that in the Air Force currently.
Does the Army?
Things that are random. Specifically, veterinarian is, like he said, it's not really a thing. But veterinarians qualify for other programs. So public health officer. There's a lot of veterinarians that are actually public health officers in the Air Force. So they can go through a medical services corps recruiter and do that. Now, if they want to become a traditional line officer, again, qualified to do that too. But Sergeant Irwin is 1,000% right. Being a veterinarian, we usually use Army vets. So it's canine. So
okay, makes sense.
It's a little bit of a crazy kind of path, but there are options, just maybe not veterinarian.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, real quick, we want to give a big celebration for Major Lane. It's his birthday, so we just want to say happy birthday.
There's a cheer button over there, son.
To,
hey, there it is.
Do we need to sing? Should we all sing?
He's the man behind the scenes. Every time you hear a voice come on the screen, that's Major Lane.
I think I will save you guys' headphones from what this end will sound like if we start singing. So to spare us the time on that one, I think I'll definitely make the call that we're not going to do that. And I'm glad because I saw the sign go up and then I saw it come down really fast. And I was like, there's monitors in the way. I can't see him. He's not looking at me saying no. So I was like, get this, go. So happy birthday, sir.
All right.
All right. I have a GED and I want to enlist and then get my bachelor's and try to be an officer. Would having a GED versus a high school diploma make my chances of becoming an officer lower? That's a really good question.
That is.
I'm going to say, I mean, if you get the bachelor's degree, we're not really concerned with anything before that. That bachelor's degree is going to be your qualifying degree, unless you go on and get a master's or whatnot. So, no, that's not going to hinder your chances. It's going to depend much more on everything else: what you do in college, what your AFOQT scores are, leadership.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense, I guess, if you think about it in a lot of applications or a lot of surveys even. It's like highest level of education, like whether you clicked high school diploma or GED first, doesn't matter if you've got a college degree after that.
Right.
Cool.
I will say this, if you have a GED and you're wanting to enlist first, as of now, you got to score 50 or higher on the ASVAB. But in Iowa, when I recruited, we had this thing called like the high set, and it was a GED equivalent, but we were able to treat it as a high school diploma. So whatever program you are, talk with the recruiter and see if it actually is the equivalent to a high school diploma. All right. And how long does it take to get a Surgeon General waiver approved? Ooh, I know on your end, from what I heard, the officers are looking for officers is a little bit different. So can y'all talk on that a little bit?
Go ahead, Sergeant LeBrie.
All right, so SGs are a little different. Civilians, it really depends mostly on the applicant's ability to get medical documentation and what exactly the medical issue is. And so it can take 6 months. I've seen it take a year. I've seen it take 30 days. It really does depend on whether or not you're prepared, like Sergeant Irwin was saying earlier, knowing that you're going to have medical concerns and getting that documentation ahead of time. And as long as you don't need consults and things like that, it's very similar to the civilian path. Only difference is it's forwarded up by an OA recruiter, usually on their own. And so now once it gets to our level and gets to the recruiting surgeon general, they're super quick. Even though they're very, very busy, they're pretty quick. So it could take anywhere from 2 weeks, 30 days to a year and a half. It really depends on the member themselves or applicant themselves getting the documentation in a timely manner, and then the recruiter processing it in a timely manner. Those are really the factors. So as little as 30 days, as long as it takes sometimes.
Awesome.
Gotcha. All right, I want to take this chance real quick, let you guys know, and everybody out there with us, we've got about 15 minutes left. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can in the next 15 minutes. But if you don't get your questions answered, and even if you do get your questions answered, come back in a couple weeks and join us 2 weeks, Tuesday, 2 o'clock Central. Next question. I didn't have a way to get from one to the other, so I was like, question, just hit it. Is it easy to transition from reserve enlisted to reserve officer without joining ROTC?
I don't think we have any reserve personnel on board, but
I mean, I know the answer is, I don't know about easy, but it is possible.
It's possible.
Right. I was going to say, I don't think it's easy. Otherwise, there'd be a lot more officers. Like it's kind of like that's kind of the best of the best. You're talking about the elite here, so.
I would say it's the same process as active duty enlisted to officer because it is reserved. Is that correct?
My understanding, ma'am, that's pretty much how it works. But the reserves, so I used to be a reserve. This is fun. The reserves, the recruiter there recruits for both officer and enlisted. So if you're a reservist and you want to go for an officer board, you should be able to talk to the same recruiter that got you into the reserves in the first place, and they can point you in the right direction for their specific board. But it's pretty similar to our process.
Okay. Cool.
Got it.
Fairly easy.
All right. I am a high school senior, but I am an early college, but I am in an early college and should be graduating with my associate in art and my associate in science. Can I enlist and work towards my bachelor's to be an officer? Most definitely.
Yes.
Ooh, and recently the Air Force just started giving $65,000 towards your college debt. So you might want to look into that, talk with the recruiter about that to try to see if you can get some payment reimbursed for your college loans. But also while you're serving, you get the tuition assistance. If you join active, you get a $4,500 tuition assistance. You also get that with the reserve and guard. You get tuition assistance with every one of the components. So just figure out which component is right for you, talk with the recruiter, and then get it all lined up, and you can definitely knock out your education while you're serving.
For sure. It's probably one of the best ways to complete your education because the Air Force has all kinds of benefits that help you get to that, and it can be at little to no cost.
Right.
So, yeah. Any regulation pertaining to choosing your specialty in medical school for HSPS?
I had a little experience doing MCHPSBs. I don't think we have any rules specifically saying you have to do this or that. So as you're going through medical school and you're doing your rotations, you're getting your grades, the Air Force will have like a consultant with you, so to speak, and they're going to talk with you about your grades, what you're looking to do, what the Air Force needs at that time, and they're going to try to point you in the best direction for you and, of course, the Air Force, right? We paid for the degree, but they're not going to make you go into one thing or the other. So a lot of it's going to be based on, how you did in med school, what you're competitive for to match into that residency training, because some are a lot more competitive than others. So there's a lot of it depends going on with that question, but generally speaking, no, they're not going to make you do something you don't want to do. They're going to have some different options for you.
Right.
And also to piggyback on that, there's the additional match of not just getting to match to the civilian side for a residency, but also the military match process. And the great thing is if you do decide to go the military match process, you get to get paid as a captain in residency versus the civilian side, what they pay you. So there is a lot of perks to the Air Force PSB program.
Awesome.
That is good to know. And having a higher degree like master's in engineering and or MBA, does that help with your OTS application packet that goes in for the board review?
Absolutely, yes. Everything that you have, whether that be a master's in engineering, a master's in business, a pilot license, anything like that is going to go on your application, and the board members are going to see that and just realize that you are, even more experienced. It's all about standing out amongst hundreds of other folks that are applying with you, and that's definitely something that's going to help. I will say with the engineering, I don't know if it's mechanical, electrical, but certain engineering degrees will qualify for our CAD board, meaning you don't even have to wait for a regular board. You just build your application, you send it up, and we will make a board for certain things. Right now, that's only for electrical engineering, but that changes every year. So just keep in touch with that recruiter, and they'll let you know what we're looking for.
That's how you get those 12-month turnarounds.
All right. Master's GPA versus bachelor's GPA. How important is it, and what role does GPA play in the selection process?
So the bachelor's is the qualifying degree. So we do have a lot of people that get a lower score on their bachelor's, lower GPA, 2.8 or something, but then they got a 4.0 in the master's. The board members are going to see that. You do have to put down that bachelor's degree. It's your qualifying GPA. So they're going to see that too. But if you've killed it with the master's degree and got a 4.0, it's definitely going to help outweigh that maybe lower number that you had from the bachelor's degree.
Got it. All right. So when you were talking about things that can make you kind of stand out. So getting that master's degree, you also said getting like a pilot's license or things along that line. What about certifications? And also, what about people we had a question, people who had PME, like who were enlisted, they went through like a PME course and they got an award in PME. How heavily do those kind of things weigh, like certifications and awards?
So truthfully, it's going to depend on the board member, right? Some board members are going to weigh that heavily than others, but it's definitely going to weigh on your application. It's definitely going to help your application out. Professional military education, that's going to show them, especially if you've been through leadership courses, NCO course, and things like that. It's going to boost you up because what you're looking to do is lead military members, and they're going to see that you already have experience and training professionally to do that. So that's great. It's gonna help you out. Definitely not going to hurt you. If you're applying for a rated position, you're applying to be a pilot or a helicopter pilot or anything like that, and you have flying hours, that's really going to help you. Having the pilot license, you've already been in the cockpit. It's also going to boost some of your scores, like your PICSM score that you have to take. So yes, all of those certifications. Cyber is another one. If you're I don't know the names of them, but the professional cyber associations out there to give you certificates and things. If you have that and you're applying for cyber warfare or cyber security, it's going to help boost your application. Those are highly sought out.
So just make sure that you're talking to your recruiter about any specialty training that you have, and if it aligns with something that you want to do, because it can definitely help you out.
Awesome.
For sure.
Thank you. All right. Is there a site for active duty enlisted applicants? I wonder, is that...
That's it. That second one that we put up.
Yep.
I don't know if you could post it back there for just a minute. It's kind of a long title.
Hey, there it is.
What would someone Google to find that?
So if they just Google, go to recruiting.af.mil / about us, and that's going to narrow it down. The whole thing is recruiting.af.mil about us, line officer candidate information and resources. So it's a mouthful, but if you Google it, get onto the main site there and just look for the active duty site that directs you to the program announcement.
Got it.
Cool.
Awesome.
2 dashes up at the top. You can use those to find just about anything you want for recruiting service to narrow it down, and it's line officer resources. That's the easiest way to think of it. Line officer applicant.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
What's the best resource to learn the difference between enlisting as active reserve or National Guard? I think that might be you, but he said the back and forth. This show, the Air Force Recruiting Services only live stream every other Tuesday right here. 1400 for you military types. But that's definitely a you question though.
Yeah, definitely. Just
this
talking. I would say this show, things like this show, but also just talking with the recruiters. just figuring out which component is going to be right for you.
Yeah.
But you can definitely, we had an episode where we had all the different recruiters for each component, and they were breaking it down, like why you should join my component, why you should join my component. I think that was the first episode we had.
It was,
so.
and you can actually go back and watch all those episodes. We answer all the questions live on the show. They come back up, so those are all saved on the YouTube, and I think they're even on the Facebook page.
Right. So I would definitely say check those out. That way you have the recruiters right there. Low stress. We're just talking, and they're talking about why you should join their component. It'd be pretty good information for you.
For sure. All right, 5-minute warning. We probably got about time for maybe 2 or 3 more questions, so let's get after them. We'll try to see if we can keep the answers quick and see if we can get more than that through. Can a refugee resettled in the USA enlist as an officer?
She would have to have
green card.
You would have to have a citizenship.
Or citizenship.
You couldn't apply to become an officer without a citizenship. Gotcha. So that would be the first question. And if you had your citizenship, I don't see why not. Am I wrong?
That's correct. Just need the U.S. citizenship.
There you go. Take that one.
What are the requirements for chaplaincy?
There you go.
Also, I am studying for chaplaincy in ministry care. Does that suffice for entry? Also, are CPE required?
Come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's next week. Next episode. So on April 4th, we're gonna have religious affairs, and we're gonna have the chaplains in. So that'll definitely be a question you can bring back. That way we can make sure we get you the 100% right answer. Okay.
2 weeks. And what are the requirements, qualifications, and skills needed to work within cybersecurity for either the U.S. Air Force or Space Force? I think it's. I mean, you want to do that officer and enlisted side?
Yeah, I would. Is that an officer specific question, or is that going to be for the enlisted side?
Enlisted and officer, generally speaking, it's the same qualifications as everything else given in the Air Force. But if you do have those certifications, you have that degree that's specific to cybersecurity. That's going to help you, match to that position.
Yeah. So for the enlisted side, a way for you to kind of stand out and get one of those type of cyber career fields is to get some certifications, like your CIS or your A plus, whatever the different certifications are. I know there's a list of them, but if you have those certifications, you go to a recruiter, it'll make you stand out as an applicant to get one of those jobs.
All right.
The jobs are high ticket right now with the Space Force, and they have a thing through LinkedIn for actually advanced placement for higher rank, depending on work experience and education. So definitely do some Google searches for that, and you'll find some really great options.
Wow. All right. I would like to join the Air Force as public health officer. Should that happen, what would be my minimum rank once I graduate as an officer? Do you think I have any chance to start as a captain since I have an MD?
So either myself or Erwin can. Sometimes it's program specific, and sometimes it is degree specific. Public health officers, typically, that's something you're going to want to reach out to a recruiter specifically about, because it's more about the position in that case than it is about your education giving you a higher rank. So you're going to have to talk to a current biomedical services corps recruiter who handles public health and see what's going on there.
Gotcha. Sir, you had something on that as well?
No, that was great.
Okay.
All right, last question. Let's get one more in here. I'm interested in full-time, but not sure if Air Force or Reserve is a better choice. Also, I have a 1-year-old boy.
I'm interested in full-time, but not sure if Air Force or Reserve is a better. Oh, so he's just trying to debate which side or which component would be best for him. That's really going to come down to your preferences. It's going to come down to your lifestyle, what kind of benefits you need. So if you need like a full-time check, if you don't have a job right now where you're getting a full-time check, then maybe active duty would be the way to go. But if you already have a job and you're just trying to get some extra benefits and serve your country, maybe the Reserve or maybe the Guard would be most beneficial for you. But that's definitely one of those things. You got to do some research, figure out what's going on in your current life and what you need to help elevate it. and whichever one of those components make the most sense, that'd be for you. And I would recommend watching that first the first live stream that we did, and also maybe reaching out to a recruiter of the different components, telling them your situation, and see what they got for you.
2. Okay.
Oh, we got 2 more.
We got more questions.
All right. Can I begin my OTS application as a junior in university, or do I have to wait until post-graduation?
So you'll probably have to wait until you begin your senior year. You need to be within 1 year of graduating with that college. So start of your senior year is a good time to reach out.
Good deal.
If it lines up perfectly, if they start day 1 of senior year and application goes through, board goes through, is it possible for them to go to OTS right after graduation?
It is. You have to have conferred degree, conferred transcripts like in hand when you attend OTS. So it's tough. It's tough time-wise. Normally, even if they graduate in like June, they may not be able to get their conferred degree and transcripts until like July or August. So that slows it down a little bit. But sure, if it lines up perfectly, it's absolutely possible.
Got it.
All right. Labrie and Irwin, is there an ESS that needs to be filled out and routed for active duty members? If so, what's the routing process? A bunch of acronyms.
Squadron,
AFRS
GRP,
yep.
Your office.
You know those acronyms better than I do. I know the last one.
Group or your office.
Okay.
Gotcha.
We do routing in ESS for the larger boards, and that goes up and it gets posted to My Peers. So if you're an active duty member, you're going to go on My Peers. That's where you're going to get your name list of all the selects once that board is closed.
Gotcha.
I think he's talking about a routing sheet to apply, which is a new trend that some folks are using to track applications. We don't require that for an application. But some squadrons and groups and wings to get their LORs and things like that have required ESSS routing, but it's not an AFRS requirement.
Gotcha.
Thank y'all.
All right. Well, Major Kinchin, Captain Werho, Tech Sergeant Irwin, and Tech Sergeant Labrie, really appreciate you guys coming on the show with us. The amount of information and the talent that you guys can bring, that we would just spend a lot of time staring across this gap in the middle of the screen at each other trying to come up with some of these answers is amazing, and we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come hang out with us and answer questions that our audience has. And for our audience, for our viewers out there, thank you much for joining us. I hope you guys have appreciated this show. Hope you've enjoyed it. We'd really appreciate it if you would go subscribe to the channel and also visit airforce.com for more information on how to become a Total Force Airman. Make sure you join us every other Tuesday, so the next one, 2 weeks from today, and we will be here at 2 o'clock. And till next time, we'll see you later.
Hey.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Back and Forth, brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.